Hello. Yesterday, we learned about building God's special house. Remember how God said, I want a place that I can dwell with you, children of Israel. And he gave Moses instructions on exactly how to build this special house and all the different things they would need for it. And the people were happy to donate those things. And it was considered a gift to God. And we call that a tithe or an offering. And the people offered all of the special things that they needed to build this beautiful special house for God. And Moses was very happy. The Hebrew people were happy. And the house that they worked together to build was finally finished. God told Moses exactly what to do and how it was to be built. And so they followed the directions exactly. And there were some sheets of fine linen, blues and purples and scarlet. And God told them what colors to use, and they wove the linens beautifully. And a second weaver looked at the curtains and he said, those guardian angels that you embroidered on the curtains are so beautiful. And they used this beautiful rich cloth. And it was so special, more special than any they'd ever seen before. And what do you think of the roof? Said one of the workers. The roof of this part was made of dyed ram skins, dyed red, and covered with seal skins to keep the rain out. So they used animal skins to make it waterproof. And then, I'm happy I wove the linen curtain of the entrance of the tabernacle, one woman said. The blue and purple and scarlet embroidery looks very elegant. They worked so hard to make this tabernacle beautiful. And then several men looked at the wood at the sides of the tabernacle, and they used what was called acacia wood, a special kind of wood. And it was very easy to carve. God told them to use this kind of wood, and it was a very special wood, and these carvers did such beautiful work on that. And there were these rings that held all of these curtains together, and the rings were made of pure gold, fine gold. And so that was from those jewels and things that they collected. They made these rings. And then the inside of the tabernacle, and here I have a picture, inside of this part with the curtain was this very, very special place. It was very sacred. And there were very important rules for God, for the people to follow in this part. This was called the Holy of Holies. And inside that special place of worship, there was a golden candlestick, and there was a table with some special bread on it called the showbread. And it was 12 holy special loaves. And that was the holy place. And there was this little altar of incense. And no one was allowed to go in this area except for the priest. So the people could come in here and they would offer sacrifices. They would bring their sheep or their doves for a sacrifice. But the only person that could go in here were the priests, the Levites. And they had to be very clean, and they had to wear special clothes in order to go in there. And only the priests would eat this bread. They were the only ones that could go in and do their work. But then this room behind here was the Holy of Holies. And it was the most sacred of all places. That's where God was. God would be in that place. And only the high priest could go in there. And only once a year. The priest would go in once a year and meet with God and pray for the sins of the people to be forgiven. And the thing that was inside of this was a special golden chest called the Ark of the Covenant. It was covered in pure gold. And inside of this box were the 10 Commandments. That's what they hid. They put the 10 Commandments in there. And there was a jar of the manna. Remember the food? They collected a jar of manna so that they would always have it to remember how God provided for them. And there was manna in that special box. And then Aaron's rod. You know the rod, the long stick that Aaron used to make the water turn to blood? And it also it budded. It actually grew flowers on it at one point. That was Aaron's rod, and that was in that box. And then there were 2 angels atop of that box made of gold, and they were stretching their wings over the ark. And so that is another very special part of that Ark of the Covenant. And the only people allowed to go into that area was the high priest. Every year there was one special high priest that could go in there. But you know what? It's such a blessing because, well, that's what the people had in the desert. But God made a way for us to be able to visit with God. And we don't have to have a priest. We can, every single week, we can go to church. And we can worship God. And we can talk to God every day. We don't have to have a sacrifice. We don't have to go to have a priest go in and talk to God for us. We get to talk to God on our very own. But where we get to go to worship is to church. And so what a blessing it is for us that we have the privilege to go to church and learn about God and hear his word and to sing praises to him. We don't have to do a sacrifice, because who was the sacrifice? Jesus was the sacrifice for our sins. He's the one that died for us, and we don't have to bring animals anymore. That is called the Old Covenant. Now there's a new covenant, and that is Jesus. He died for us, so now we can worship God in our church wherever we go. And we can hear about him and learn of him, and it's wonderful. We are privileged. We're blessed because we have Jesus. Do you know him? And do you go to church and worship God every week, or at least, occasionally? Hopefully it's every single week, and that we can spend time, because that's kind of how we can remember the Sabbath to keep it holy, by worshiping God and going to church.